Welcome, sentient beings from all known universes and beyond. It's time to activate your cranial downlinks and prepare to receive a raft of discussion on a cosmic ocean of science fiction and fantasy topics, interviews with local area genre devotees, and insightful prognostication by our soothsayers of science fiction, our forecasters of fantasy, and any other beings that happen to get caught in our gravity well. This is the Galactic Driftwood Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Galactic Driftwood Podcast. Once again, Bill and Linda are off on one of their adventures, actually at TeslaCon, and Bill will actually be giving us an update later on in the episode. So right away, though, I'm Seth, and joining me this week,
I'm Charles.
I'm Jenna.
And I'm Chris.
Hey, and this week we're going to be talking about The Peripheral, a show I don't know anything about. So, Chris, maybe you can tell me about it.
Is it The Peripheral or The Matrix or The Lawnmower Man or Ready Player One?
Hey. To be clear, the Lawnmower Man movie had nothing to do with the short story that was written by Stephen King. Even though they took the rights of the story and then were like, you know what? We should just take a bunch of cocaine and add lights in our wet dreams of what virtual reality is going to be.
Yeah.
And that's the Lawnmower Man. So,
along that note, The Peripheral, if you can't tell by now, is some type of virtual reality show. It's actually based off a novel by William Gibson, and it's created by the guys who did Westworld. Hint, hint, that means a complex universe being made up, of which I'll just kind of spoil it now. It's not as good as Westworld, and we'll get into why. It was initially renewed in February for a second season, but it was scrapped in August, unfortunately, due to the strike. And we'll talk a little bit about that maybe on another episode. But, I'm not sure this series was something that was going to claw itself back anyways. So we'll talk a little bit about that. The overall synopsis of it is, a young woman by the name of Flynn Fisher, who lives in North Carolina, I believe, is trying to raise money to pay for her mother's medication. Her mother's very sick, is not doing well. In that process, while it's bleak for her mom, there's not a lot of time left. Her and her brother Burton seem to be doing okay, making some money, playing some VR games for some extra cash kind of on the side. And she notably has a very high skill set in what she's able to do in these games. And ultimately, I believe it was her brother roped her in for a job that he had that was going to pay big. And so she agrees to do it. And in that, it also came with this new VR next-gen type system. And when she went to participate in this game, we come to find out that it's not really a game, but it's a reality that's maybe not in the too distant future, specifically roughly like 70 years or so ahead. So when they join these headsets, we come to find out that they're actually controlling these robotic / androidish type bodies in the future. So they're not going into the game.
They call them peripherals.
Yeah, they call them peripherals. And we come to learn that these peripherals can be tweaked and, have certain abilities, so to speak. And that's kind of where this show takes off, is the realization that they are going into, they're being pulled into a future to deal with some issues or find some people, deal with some political strife, a bunch of different things, as it turns out, by the time we get to the end of the show. And it gets a little bit weird when we get to the end, but that's kind of the basis of what's going on. We have multiple plots intertwined loosely at times, and there are plots that occur in the future, and there are plots that are occurring in the past, somewhat kind of together. You have this woman in hiding, Alita West, who seems to be holding some secrets about whatever's actually going on. Everyone appears to be an enemy, whether it's friends in your own timeline or a peripheral / stub of the future. And then we get a realistic viewpoint of like future tech, which is where I kind of found interesting in this from a VR standpoint, and how it's intertwined. Well, not just a VR standpoint, but human augmentation. The military guys, her brother and his band of I'll just call them a kill squad.
Ex-Marines. They're a bunch of ex-Marines. Because
maybe a little bit concerned about like our future of our military and the kind of augmentations that they'll have. But as you can hear, the synopsis kind of grew into this big multiple thing going on. That's because that's what the peripheral is. It's a lot of different things. So we'll start with wherever we want to start in this. Jenna?
So I think it's safe to say there's probably 4 big themes or problems that are trying to be addressed. So, or at least explored in the series. There is what happens in the future when tech becomes bigger and bigger, but economy and the US is basically falling apart. Because in Flynn's world, you have to imagine it kind of like a coal mining town where there's not much going on. Yeah. There's not opportunity except for a big drug lord who kind of has a grip on the town but keeps it safe from the outsiders. And VR, thanks to technology and this print shop that Flynn worked in, is kind of how they make side money. Her brother's friend that Chris talked about, in this type of environment, there are a bunch of vets, as we see, these people coming back from issues because there was a big civil war, apparently between Texas. They call it the Texas Outback.
Yeah.
And the rest of the states. So it's that level of, as technology advances, what opportunities actually are going to exist because so many things are going to be mechanized. There's the issue of, is there an apocalypse coming? Because what the future ends up doing is the whole reason this technology is developed, that of a peripheral to go back in time, is their theory of time is once you go back and change something, you create a new timeline.
Oh, yep. The stub.
Yep, the stub. So at some point, there's what you call a jackpot, where there's a perfect storm of drought, war, grid failure, and disease.
Janet, that doesn't sound like a jackpot.
No, it's a tongue-in-cheek.
She's working into it.
Okay.
It's a tongue-in-cheek thing, and like 7 billion people die within a short period of time. So what's left in the future is this restructuring where you have the cops, the wealthy crime lords who basically helped pull order together, and the Research Institute, which is trying to find ways to avoid a future jackpot, but also make an environment that is psychologically healthy, that people will even want to go on living. So like in the future, most of the people you see walking down the street are just like NPCs to make
it's like
you feel
holographic world.
Yeah, it's a mostly like integrated virtual reality, so that you don't see the breadth of the destruction. Like buildings that they're working on trying to slowly bring back are actually built because everyone has an implant that supposedly keeps them safe from the toxins of the environment of the jackpot. And if you take out this implant, then you're going to die quickly. That is what everyone in the future has been told. So exploring this concept of how much control do you surrender post apocalypse, because that's 2 things in one. It's the apocalypse. How does the world survive, especially using technology, so people don't lose their minds and you maintain order? And then how much control do you surrender to the government for that order? And then the ethics of this whole time travel, because like I said, they create a new stub every time they go back in the past and interact with it. And what the Research Institute is doing is they're mining resources and information. So for one example, they developed a new type of military weapon that's gear. So they took that technology back to the past, incorporated into the government's use of their units, and just tested how effective it was, but ultimately like killing people and getting people maimed. Because they can just send it back to the past, and then in an instant they know the results of their testing.
Hmm.
Yep.
So if it creates a stub,
Mm-hmm.
are they then on the stub if they like send it back to the past? They don't.
People are. So it's basically the people, the future, they're stuck with their timeline no matter what. Nothing in the past that they send backward is going to change what has happened. The jackpot has occurred. But they basically create viewing windows in a multiverse.
Okay. So they can see the other timelines.
Yep, they can see the other timelines, but they basically have to keep that address of the timeline in whatever reality using their technology, so that they can continue to view it. Because if they lose access to that timeline, likely they'll never find it again, and they'll lose the research. So as Flynn stumbles into the realization that this is all real, it's not a VR, and she's being used because what she was used in her first mission to obtain was something from the Research Institute, some tool, some technology that the future doesn't realize they're using to potentially control them. So they try to keep going back and kill her, and she's trying to find a way to undermine them and hopefully not get her family killed, because basically there's a hit on them from the future.
She ended up fighting a battle on two fronts, one in the future and in the past, to stay alive.
So, like, what's the Institute's goal with the other timelines then? Like, can they get over to a better world if they find one that they, like, fix? Or they're just trying to do it for the good of that one timeline?
No, it's research. It's research and control for their own. So, like, spoiler alert, if they can develop a technology to control the minds or the behaviors of people, then they have compliance. So the jackpot will never happen again.
Okay. So
they're doing it at the expense of everyone in the past, though, or in these
of multiple everyone's in the past.
Yes.
That's a new timeline of lives for every time they go back in metal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that makes them right bastards, doesn't it?
It does. And that's where it adds to the complexity of these different timelines, because in the future, there's not just one player on the field. There's multiples. Some trying to expose the truth of what happened and how they got to where they were at. Jenna mentioned those implants. The implants were also, I believe, messing with memory.
Yes.
But he was keeping them from remembering either if they were alive during a time, what happened in that past, or what happened during the quote unquote jackpot. They got them to where they're at. And so, as Jenna mentioned, the big lie or the big thing was, if you take those implants out, you're going to succumb to whatever diseases and die and whatever. But it also turns out if you take that implant out, as we come to learn from Alita West, you start to remember what actually happened, and the death and the chaos, and where all the bodies are buried.
For the new world order.
Yeah,
from the jackpot.
All in the name of the new world order.
Yep.
And
because
go ahead.
Yeah, when you have that much chaos, depending on where you're at, there are going to be leadership that's going to try and control the chaos. And what happened to control the chaos was obviously a lot of massacre to pull people in line.
Mm-hmm. Yep, just snuff out those that did not fall in line. in mass, bury the bodies, and put a nice virtual curtain over everything to make everything nice.
So all those giant statues are virtual.
Most of them are, I
Yeah.
think. Like they are rebuilding society, but there's so few people to actually rebuild because there's a lot of robots in this world. There are a lot of robots, period, that do the work and stuff. So it's not rebuilding quickly, but just so people are mentally like not depressed because they see destruction everywhere, their implant projects.
Yeah, that's what they had kind of lost us too bad. They lost me partly because of that. Cause I'm like, well, it didn't make sense, but now it does.
I mean,
coming out of a bleak world would be so whatever, rich visually was not making sense to me. So
Yeah, and that's why it
made it very hard to continue.
it was Flynn kind of struggled with that, and one of her good friends in this Wilf, played by Gary Carr, kind of gets real close in terms of relationship with her, and he's also had a troubled, mysterious past, and he's primarily the one trying to hunt down Alita and find out where she went to. But Wilf is kind of key in helping Flynn understand kind of the two realities of the future that she's going to, meaning he helps her pull up the curtain a little bit to see beyond what's been filtered out, to see kind of the chaos and the destruction and the wasteland that's out there. Because at first, I mean, her first couple trips, if not her first few trips, she really doesn't have any idea. And so he's the one that kind of helps her to understand, like, look, it's not all rainbows and roses out here. And kind of the cool thing on the technology side is, the implants allow you to have certain controls with like your hand. So you can do certain motions to turn things on or off, or turn the volume of certain things up and down and whatnot. So he teaches her how to basically unveil the curtain. And it's one of the first few times, maybe a third of the way through the series, maybe a little later than that he kind of unveils the wasteland to her. And then you're like, oh my God, this place is wrecked.
It's ghost town.
Yeah.
It's an absolute ghost town.
Everything around them, from most of the people and everything, children playing, kids on bikes, whatever, none of it was real. And so that part was kind of distressing, because I was like, well, it was kind of a cool world to be in when she was in the future. But now I hope that they keep the curtain on, because it was pretty depressing to look at. And they do, for the most part. They don't show it too much, but that's also kind of how a lot of people live there. They live with that curtain in front of their eyes. So, yeah, it was.
Well, good. Well, they did it well enough that you could see wanting the curtain if you were there.
Yeah.
Taking that pill.
Yeah, and if even you were like, man, I think I prefer the curtain up. Like, imagine living there.
Yeah.
And that's where Chris kind of said in the beginning, it's kind of the Matrix, it's kind of this, it's kind of that. That choice of, do you want to know how bad the world is, or do you just want to be safe in your bubble and go on? So like,
you want the ability to double click your finger and tune it out.
So there's a lot of really cool technology in the show. There's a lot of different things for people. If you like a cool mystery thriller, it's got. If you like shows about sci-fi and time, that's there. If you want to, fantasize about what technology might be in the future, or even the near future, there you go. If you enjoy disaster movies because you're a prepper and you want to feel justified in what you're doing, there you go.
Yeah, if you like action, this has fight scenes that are up there with the best of them. Honestly, very well choreographed, very cool fight scenes here. Nothing that gets even way out of the realm of possibilities for physicalness of people that doesn't get like crazy, not like Matrix like or anything like that, but pure martial arts and pure just hard effort and grit and just grinding through a battle. So all of it's kind of there, and it was pretty entertaining from that aspect. So it was definitely pretty good in that regard. I think you hit the nail on the head, Jenna. It's got a little bit of something for everybody.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a cohesive plot, though, like.
But this is where I'm going to disagree with you. So I think the plot was definitely cohesive, but it was just had to be rushed at the end. And I get adapting books, and you're not sure if you're going to get the renewal for the season 2, because it ends on a cliffhanger. But at the same time, I could be at peace with the way they ended it if it doesn't get renewed. There are some series that when you find out there's not a second season, it just makes you angry and you wish you'd never watched
So that was me at the end of this, though. And
I not on this.
And see, this is kind of why I don't. I'm hesitant to watch some of these first seasons of these streaming things. Like, the better they are, it's going to make me even more angry and sad when the company just cuts them.
I thought it was too good to get the cancellation of the second season, even though I had my doubts of their ability to claw back the plot. I felt that maybe the first season should have been longer, so it didn't have to feel rushed. And I get where they, you can only do so much with what you have, but I felt like at some point they crammed too much in there because it left so much. They did a good job of, you understand what direction it's going to by the time we get to the end, especially regarding Flynn's fate. That got a little weird. And spoiler alert, Flynn takes a bullet at the end, and it's all to kind of, I don't know if I'm going to say this right, Jenna, fuck up the goal of kind of the research institute, and to kind of plug a hole, if you will, in the whole messing with the timelines. And then she kind of comes to in a future, in the future, which explains a lot of oddities that they were talking about when they ask about Flynn in the future, that she's nowhere in the records, like she's just not there, which again is weird, because then it means that she closed the loop, so to speak, or she did what she was supposed to do. If in the future there was no record of her, it's because she was dead, and she goes through with it. It's all weird. It's timeline stuff, but
oh man, time travel stuff is really hard to write well.
It is, and this was done well. I just thought that there were too many plots that all equally got as deep that it was hard to focus on any one of them. And because timelines get messy, and in this one they were getting into different stubs and different changes and stuff, I felt like when Flynn comes across the, what do I want to call this device of how they were controlling their time travel, right? It had the map of the timelines, right? And it showed the stubs on it. And she picks one and destroys the machine, I believe, and then does her thing. And the whole thing just kind of got, for me, weird. And I wish they elaborated more on that. And I get where they're like, well, look, I have to get back to my other 4 or 5 plots here to continue those storylines too, so I can't spend any more time on this one. So the ending didn't leave any, exactly what direction every plot is going in the ending, but you don't actually get to see what ultimately happens. So yeah, I threw a chair, honestly. I was like, come on. But to that point, I was invested. It kept me invested that whole time.
Yeah, the characters were really good. That's just it. The characters were really good. They felt like real people. You definitely get invested in them. And it's like, I really hope they pull back and do the season 2 to wrap up what they've started.
As far as I know, it's been canceled, but I guess we'll see if that changes in the future. I think it deserves a second season. I think the creators of Westworld probably had a vision that was going to make this all kind of come together. And let's be frank, in Westworld, it took several seasons, and it's not going to happen in one or two with this. With the quality that they put into this, from the CG to the actors, all of the actors were phenomenal.
Yes.
It was amazing, and I just felt like when we got to the end, I would have rather seen this called, season 1, part 1 or something, or I don't know. There's a part 2 that's missing, and we do deserve the rest of it. I have my doubts on how they're going to claw it back, but I haven't also read the books to know how this is supposed to play out, or how close they are to it, or whether they're kind of throwing their own stuff in there.
I'm ready to read the books after this. So I hope even if they don't renew a season 2, I hope people go watch this, get fascinated, and then go buy this guy's books.
Yeah, I added the book, I think, to my audiobook collection because it is interesting enough to where I want to know how close they were to it, and ultimately where they were going to go, and whether or not it all starts to kind of come together. So it's that good of a story. It's actually pretty great.
Well, I mean, I looking up really quick, I would kind of expect it to be a great story since it was written by William Gibson. I actually haven't read any William Gibson, but he wrote Neuromancer, which started cyberpunk. Like, that was the book that started cyberpunk. So, like,
Okay.
if you like some cyberpunk stuff, it's only because like William Gibson invented it.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Yeah. So it was good again, and there was from the technology side, the VR equipment was pretty cool, and the augmentation of the military soldiers on that. They had these additional implants that kind of allowed them to communicate with each other either through their mind. They could talk to each other and everything. But not only that, but they could control things like drones. They had enhancements to like sight. At one point, I was creeped the hell out because they were able to control one of their fallen comrades. He was already kind of stabbed to death. And murdered, and they managed to jolt his body somehow to kind of cause a distraction. That was freaking weird. So there's there were some cool things that they showed there, but then you had to think back to, what kind of torture and experimentation was done on them to get them to that level, where they're this 5-person elite military squad, or however many there were of them. They can take on like 50 or 100 people. It was pretty nuts. But that was kind of a interesting soldier augmentation by technology that they had in there, which was pretty cool to see. The haptics and everything they brought in, and it actually gave them kind of an advantage when some of them joined in the future and they went to the other things. They were able to quickly adapt to the peripheral bodies and utilize the augmentations that were built in, because they had already had experience with some of it in their own timeline, so it gave them a combative edge, which unfortunately was like short-lived, given like it's so late in the season. By the time we get to that point, again, it's like, man, we really didn't get to see them take off with those peripherals. Like we get a little bit of a splash to show that they are above the average person in terms of controlling them, but then season's over now. So that sucked. I was looking forward to more of that. But it was good. A lot of cool things.
So, I mean, I think I might check out the book myself. But I don't deal well with cliffhangers, so
that's fair. No, that's absolutely fair.
Cliffhanger, dude. Big cliffhanger.
Yeah, I can't. Sorry, Jenna.
But otherwise, Jenna, out of what would you give it out of 10?
Oh, I would say the only reason I would give it a 9 out of 10 is because they didn't finish it. Like they didn't give it a season 2. This is probably one of my favorite sci-fis I've seen, from the quality of all the casts to the technology to the what ifs. It was great. Like I want to see the end of it, which is why I'm probably going to read the book too.
Yeah. For me, it was just like you. The cliffhanger drove it down for me, and for me, it feels like a bigger deal. So I'm in more like an 8 out of 10, 7.5 out of 10, or something like that. Just because, again, there was so much going on that there was no way to get to any kind of ending that was going to be satisfactory. And they had to have known that going into it at some point. And again, I wish in the way that it was written, they had future commitments already in hand to make at least a couple more seasons or something. And they don't do that. And it's disappointing. It's like, guys, don't go on these ventures as something that'll be incomplete if you can't get it guaranteed to make the second one. So is what it is. But otherwise, I mean, if you're into the entertainment and you're not a person, give it a shot, see what you like. I guarantee it can carry you to the end. And eat your feelings after.
So Charles, what do you think?
Well, I didn't finish it. I started. I am wondering, do you start having sympathies for the future people? Because it felt to me like you had the girl from the trailer park and her brother who's part of an elite squad, which and then the future people didn't seem they just seemed mean.
They are.
And that was, and I don't, that's probably part of the reason I just sort of stopped, because I'm like, I'm not feeling it. I could care less if we destroy them.
No.
That's where
they have it coming, that's for sure. No, you don't feel a lot of sympathies except maybe for Wilf, but even then, Wilf was taking advantage of Flynn to an extent as well to get what he wants. So everybody was working somebody in the future, so it's hard to have a lot of sympathies for them when it's really about Flynn and her family and trying to survive being meddled with by others.
I kind of wish now that I when I might do this is just skip ahead to the last episode or last two.
I would do the last two because the last one's a trip.
Yep.
And then see if I need to fill in.
And you're gonna. I think if you skip ahead and only go to the last one, the second to last episode has one of my favorite lines from the whole series.
Okay, well, I will do that. That works for me sometimes. There was another. I don't remember which one it was now, but with Bill I was having problems with, and then we watched the last episode, and I'm like, oh, okay. now it's worth it.
All right. Well, we actually have a brief message from Bill over at TeslaCon to send us out today. So Let's hear from Bill really quick.
Hello, Drifters. It's William Danger Newman here, a.k.a. Indiana Jones, and Linda as Willie Scott, exploring the Curse of Anubis at TeslaCon 13.
Do I have something on my back?
Oh my God, you do. All right, well, stay tuned. We're going to show some clips of TeslaCon.
Oh, yeah, see, then, yeah.
Well, that was cool, whatever that was. Oh, recording ahead. I have no idea what he put there.
Thanks, Bill.
So, with that being said, anyone else have anything?
No, check it out, or at least go check out the book.
If you read the book and then saw the series, what did you think?
let
Did
us
it do
know.
any justice? Did you like it? Was it a good start?
Yeah, there's a whole
Anyone-
trilogy. So you can,
If they don't create season 2?
yeah, there's a trilogy, so you've got some reading ahead of you.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
All right. And well, with that, I think we should call it an episode. So, everyone, have a good week, and bye from Galactic Driftwood. I don't remember how we end these.
Later.
Later. Bye.
Later.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Galactic Driftwood podcast. For more information and past episodes, please visit our website at galacticdriftwood.space or subscribe to us on YouTube. And now, please deactivate your cranial downlinks, collect your towels, and be sure to watch your step as you exit our gravity well.